So this is Dr. Kavita Singh, Associate Professor in Department of Civil Engineering and Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. So today we are going to discuss a topic called as watershed management for sustainable development. So till now we have discussed about the watershed characteristics, its watershed management, what is a watershed, and how the watershed activities, how the climate will be affecting, what are the factors which affects the watershed. And now we are going to understand about the watershed management for sustainable development. So whichever area is going through this watershed management, how it is easy to understand about the watershed management. So let us understand about this. So these are the contents which we are going to study: watershed management for sustainable development, holistic planning and integrated management, sustainable land use practices, water resource conservation and management, biodiversity and ecosystem service preservation, climate change and adaptation and mitigation, economic development and livelihood, education capacity and building, and policy governance, monitoring and evaluation. So this all we are going to discuss now. So first of all, let us understand watershed management for sustainable development. So what is sustainable development? First of all, we should know what is sustainable development. So sustainable development is the development of such area based on its the resources what it is present in such areas. It has to be managed in such a way that the resources should be managed in such a way that it should be enough for the present generation and it should be used for the future generations also. So manage the resources in such a way, in a proper manner, to should not affect the future generations. Okay, so watershed management for sustainable development, it involves the integrating environmental, social and economic considerations. Like it will involve the integrating environmental, social considerations means it's management of such an area for sustainable development. We have to just concentrate on the environmental activities like ecosystem should be maintained proper, the forest resources should be maintained proper, and the activities in the environment, the pollution should be reduced, the water pollution should be avoided, and social economic conditions means the activities in the environment should be controlled way. Economic means we have to think about the growth of such area based on the saving of the water, conservation of the water. How can we develop that area? So that is the management for sustainable development. To ensure the management of watershed supports the long-term ecological health. It will just support us the long-term ecological health and community well-being and the economic prosperity. So watershed management can contribute to the sustainable development. So wherever we can manage the watershed, it will help us in the sustainable development. So let us find out that what are the different approaches here. So holistic and planning integrated management. In this we have integrated water resource management. So that is IWRM, that is integrated water resource management. Adopting an IWRM approach which ensures the water, land and related resources within a watersheds and are managed in the coordinated manner. So this, if we adopt this integrated water resource management, of integrated means water, land, these are the two things, or forest also if you include. So these all approach, if you relate together, if you just contribute together, if you try to maintain it properly, that is called as integrated approach of the resource management. So this approach balances the needs and the different sectors, for example, agricultural, industries, urban development, and ensures the water resources and are used efficiently and equitably in this area. Now, multi-stakeholder involvement. Under this integrated, we can just integrated water resource management, multi-stakeholder involvement. So engaging all stakeholders, including the local communities, government agencies, businesses and NGOs in the planning and decision making. So it will help us in engaging the stakeholders will be engaged in this, and if they will involve in the communities, they will involve in the government agencies, business and NGOs in the planning and decision making process. This ensures the diverse perspective and considered, and that management strategies are socially acceptable and environmentally sound. So when the stakeholders are involved in such kind of management of the integrated approach, then it will be like diverse perspective and it will be considered as management strategies are socially, it will be accepted and environmentally sound. So adaptive management, if you talk about adaptive management, implemented flexible strategies that can be adjusted based on the monitoring data and the changing conditions. Now, sustainable land use practices. So, this is also very helpful in the sustainable management of sustainable development. So, sustainable land use practices like erosion controls, soil conservation. So, it will implementing the practices like counter plowing, terracing, agroforestry to reduce the soil erosion, improve the soil fertility, and increase the water infiltration rate. So here erosion control will be happening, and soil conservation we can just see in the sustainable land use. So how does the erosion control can happen? When you plant more and more tree, when you do this terracing farming, when you do more and more reforestation should be there, which will reduce the soil erosion, and it will also improve the soil fertility, because once you grow more and more plants, when you do reforestation, you will stop the deforestation. That means the upper layer of the soil will not be washed away whenever the rainfall occurs. The soil fertility will be maintained, and the increased water infiltration may happen. So if the soil holding capacity is more, that means the water will be holded over there, and the infiltration rates will be high, and the groundwater will be more over there. So these practices supports the sustainable agriculture and reduce the sedimentation in the water bodies. So these kind of practices, like if you go with the reforestation, if you go with the reduce the soil erosion, that will help us in the to reduce the sedimentation in the water body, because once the soil erosion is not there, that means the reduction of the sedimentation will be happening. Now, sustainable agriculture, which will promoting farming techniques that minimize the chemical inputs like pesticides, fertilizers, conserve water, such as organic farming, crop rotation, and the precision agriculture. So, promoting the farming techniques that will minimize the chemical inputs. Sustainable agriculture is what which will promote as the farming techniques. It will minimize the chemical inputs, pesticides, fertilizers, and it will conserve the water, such as organic farming, crop rotation, and the precision agriculture. If you adopt this all kind of conservation practices, like which will help us in the precision agriculture, and sustainable agriculture will promote us in techniques that will minimize the chemical inputs. Now, urban planning and green infrastructure. Designing urban areas with green spaces, permeable pavements, rain gardens, and other green infrastructure to manage the storm water, to reduce the urban heat islands, and enhance the quality of the life for the residents. So urban planning in such a manner should be there, and green infrastructure as a green building to be used, which will help us in the sustainable manner, which will reduce the pollution first of all, and the natural resources will be used for the construction purposes, and there is less heat in the urban islands, and it will manage the storm water also, which will help the enhancement of the quality of the residents. Now, water resource conservation and management. So what is water resource conservation and management? Efficient water use. So promoting water saving technologies in agriculture, like drip irrigation facilities can be used, industry water recycling, and the household low flow fixtures can be used in this efficient water use, and it will reduce the water demand and ensure the water resources and will be used sustainably. Like if you use the efficient water use efficiently, if you use the water, so it will promote the water saving technology practices in the agriculture. It will help us to store the water, like drip irrigation will help us to save the water, like water wastage will not be there, and water recycling will happen, which will fix the low flow fixtures will happen. So groundwater management, so protecting and sustainably managing the groundwater resources through recharge practices, control extractions, and pollution prevention. The groundwater management, like managing the groundwater resources through the groundwater recharge practices can be done, and control extraction of the pollutions and prevention can be done in this region. So this is a crucial for ensuring the long-term water availability, especially in the arid regions. So if you go with this groundwater management, it will help us in the ensuring the long-term water availability, especially in the arid regions wherever the rainfall is less. When the rainfall is very less in these regions, it is helpful in storing the more and more water. Now, water quality protection, implementing measures to prevent the controlled pollution from agricultural runoff, industrial discharges, and urban storm water will be affecting here. So, implementing measures to prevent the controlled pollution and from the agricultural runoff, industrial discharges can happen, and urban storm of the water can happen. Maintaining Clean water essential for the human health, biodiversity, and economic activities like tourism and the fishing. Biodiversity and ecosystem services preservation. So habitat restoration. So restoring the degraded ecosystems such as wetlands, riparian zones, and forest is like we have to just restore the habitat. We should not degrade the habitat. Degrading the habitat means cutting of the plants, cutting of the trees, and cutting of the forest. That means we are degrading the ecosystems. We are spoiling the ecosystems such as wetlands, riparian zones, and forest. We are just spoiling it, and based on that, in result of that, the habitation restoration is must in this region, because a biodiversity and ecosystem services preservation, if it is not there, that means our total cycle will be disturbed. There will be less rainfall, there is no water cycle will not run properly, the nutrient cycle will not run properly, there will be problem with the cycling of nutrient cycle as well as the water cycle. So that's why restoring of the degraded ecosystem should be must in this watershed management for sustainable development. To enhance the biodiversity, improve water quality, to provide the critical ecosystem like flood regulation and carbon sequestration. So to enhance the diversity, to improve the water quality, to provide the critical ecosystem like flood regulations and the carbon sequestration will be happening in such region if you go with this habitat restoration. Conservation and native species, like protecting the native species like animals within the watershed, particularly those which are threatened. We have to conserve the species those are threatened in such regions for the sustainable development, because the species are also a resource. So once you conserve the species which are endangered species are there, that will be threatened, and it will be endangered species will be sources. So biodiversity contributes to the ecosystem resilience and provide the resources for the local communities. Now sustainable forestry and fisheries. So managing forest and the fisheries in a way that maintains their productivity and the ecological functions. Now climate change and adaptation and mitigation. So resilient infrastructure, designing and upgrading the infrastructure, dams, levees, roads to withstand the extreme weather events and changing the climatic conditions. So this reduces the vulnerability to the floods, droughts, and the other climate related risks. So resilient infrastructure to be developed, designing the upgraded infrastructure like dams and levees, which will help to improve the resilient power, and there will be weather changing events in the climatic conditions. Now carbon sequestration, promoting land management practices that capture and store carbon such as reforestation, afforestation, and soil conservation. So if you want to just remove carbon dioxide, and if you go with the carbon sequestration, then we have to promote the land use practices, and we have to store the carbon, and we have to go with the reforestation and afforestation practices and the soil conservation too. So this helps to mitigate the climate change, which will enhance the ecosystem services. To enhance the ecosystem services, this will be helpful in the managing practices. So water storage solutions, developing managing the water storage systems like reservoirs, aquifers, and rainwater harvesting to be carried out. So to buffer against periods and water scarcity, and the support agricultural and domestic water needs during the drought conditions. Economic development and livelihood. Sustainable tourism, developing ecotourism initiatives that highlight the natural beauty, cultural heritage of watersheds while generating income for the local communities and supporting the conservation of it. So what is sustainable tourism? Sustainable tourism means we have to develop the ecotourism and highlight the natural beauty of the cultural areas, heritage of the watersheds, generating the income from the local communities, and which will support the conservation efforts. Community-based enterprises encouraging the development of small-scale sustainable business, agroforestry, handicrafts, renewable energy projects can be managed by this. So that provide the livelihood for the local people and to contribute the local economy. Education and capacity. So we have to educate the people, like we have to increase the public awareness and compliance, raising awareness about the importance of watershed protection of the sustainable practices among local communities, schools, and broader public. Education fosters and a culture and stewardship and the sustainable resource use can be done here. Now training and technical support, providing training to the local farmers, to the community, to the leaders, and to the sustainable practices. Water management and climate resilience can be managed. Policy and governance, regulatory frameworks, developing the enforcing policies like regulations that promote the sustainable land use, protect water resources, conserve biodiversity. which will enforcing the policies, applying the policies, regulations, which will promote the sustainable land use. So if you follow the policy and rules and regulations which can protect the water resource and can conserve the biodiversity. This includes zonings, laws, water quality standards, and protected area and designations. Institutional coordination, ensuring the various government agencies and organizations work together and effectively to implement the watershed management strategies. Monitoring and evaluation, performance monitoring, regularly monitoring the effectiveness of watershed management practices in achieving the sustainable goals. This includes the tracking the water quality continuously. We can just track the water quality issues, and biodiversity land use changes can be tracked, and social and economic activities can be taken place. Impact assessment, conducting environmental, social, and impact assessment to evaluate the potential effects of the development projects within the watershed. So this is about the different sustainable development management, about the planning. What if you follow this planning? That's how we can just manage the any area by the we can manage any area sustainably in the any kind of watershed management. So this is about the watershed management for sustainable development. So these are the contents which you can go through to find out the more content about it. Just go through the MNG Reddy book, Remote Sensing by GS Publication and BS Publications, and here the links are there which you can just go through to find out the more contents about it. So this is about the watershed management for sustainable development. So that's all for today. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.